Welcome back for another episode of Strive for 25. Joel Farrell here, and looking forward to sharing with you our guest. Welcome back to another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast. And I've got an amazing guest today, Gaetano Ciambriello. And this guy's a rock star. He's a budding rock star in the Northeast, and he is a real estate investor, a mortgage professional, and a few other things cooking, I'm sure. But give our listeners a little bit of a background on who you are.
100%, and you nailed it right on the head with the name. So love that. Yeah, my name's Gaetano. I'm a mortgage lender, family business. My dad started 25 years ago. Actually, when I was born, he was working like a blue collar job. Left that, took paternity leave for 6 months. Got into the mortgage business 6 months after that. Started his own company. So he's been doing that for 25 years. Always a small shop. My brother and I joined around the same time in June of 2020. And then right before I left my old job, I spent a year working on Wall Street. I bought my first property. I still had my W-2 income. That was my first student rental, April of 2020, and have been building a portfolio since then, partnered with my brother who's in the mortgage business with me, and my brother-in-law as well. There's 3 of us total. And we now have 16 units, and we rent to 80 college students. And that's in Fairfield, Connecticut. So I'm building the mortgage business and the student housing business right now.
And not to add too much onto it, but you're also pretty active on Twitter, amongst other places too. And so that's something I want to dig into a little bit along the way. So for our listeners out there, you mentioned being on Wall Street. So you started on Wall Street, did that for a year. How did you get to that? Kind of give us a little backstory on that first.
Yeah, so I went to Fairfield Prep, an all-boys Jesuit high school, Fairfield, Connecticut, pretty wealthy school, and saw a lot of my dad's buddies did very well. Always wondered what they did. A lot of them worked in finance in Manhattan, one way or another. I go to Fordham after I graduate from Fairfield Prep, which is in the Bronx, 20 minutes outside of Manhattan to get to Grand Central by train. And after my freshman year, I work at a mortgage company, large mortgage company in Connecticut. They're almost nationwide now. And I got that from a dad's friend from my dad's friend who set me up in the closing department. I was doing like verification of employment, like confirming homeowners insurance, like my freshman year of college, 3 days a week. I go into my sophomore year. I got all my partying out of my system freshman year. So Fordham's a big bar school. I mean, we were going out 3-4 nights a week. Got that out of my system. Sophomore year, I'm like, all right, I got to get serious about getting a job. So I remember cold messaging people on LinkedIn that were in finance, just having conversations, like seeing what they did for work, find out what I really want to do. I started that October, my sophomore year. By January, I knew I probably had about 140 conversations at that point. I knew that I wanted to get into sales and trading. So started visiting trading floors around that time. And I was still emailing people. I cold emailed a CEO of a real estate investment trust, mortgage REIT in Manhattan. They were in the Jeffries building on 52nd and Lex, I think, or 52nd in Madison, something like that. And he's like, hey, your resume looks great. Why don't you come in for an interview? I had no idea. I didn't even realize who he was when I emailed him. So went in sophomore year, got the internship, worked at a mortgage REIT. It was called Chimera Investment Trust. Super interesting what they did. And it was my first experience working in Manhattan. So commuted from Fordham that summer to go there. Come back, and I'm, working hard to get an internship junior year. Usually the way it works in finance is if you get a junior year internship after your junior year, at the end, they'll give you a full-time offer to come back and, work full-time when you graduate. So, same thing, networking, trying to make it happen, visiting trading floors, ended up getting an offer at Citigroup, did the summer, got a full-time offer, and then went back and started working there after I graduated. And that was in June of 2019. And then spent a full year working at Citigroup on the bond desk. Interest rate derivative sales desk. And that, I mean, the story of how I got that, how I thought I was going to be there a long time, and what ended up happening is funny. And it ended up not working out. It was not what I thought it was. And ended up working with my dad starting in June 2020.
Do you want to share a little bit about what you expected versus what the reality was in that world?
So
you don't have to if you don't want to.
No, hell yeah. I mean, it's a funny story. So as an intern, you're not licensed, to be on the sales and trading desk. What you're doing is you're matching hedge funds, pension funds, asset management firms, and you're providing them liquidity to buy and sell, government bonds, swap derivatives, things of that nature. As an intern, you're not licensed. You can't sell, you can't trade, so you can't do anything. As an intern, you shadow people, meaning you just watch what they do each day, and you're usually asking questions. You're going out to coffees with people, really just getting to know a little bit about the business, and it's more of a relationship building exercise because you can't do any actual work. So you're just meeting people all day long. And I loved it. I was shadowing multiple people a day. Honestly, you're like kind of screwing around on the desk, making jokes, but also asking intelligent questions. You'd go out for coffee with people. As an intern, nobody's looking. No one's like, where's Gaetano? Like, he's got to get work done. So there were times where I would just disappear for 3 hours and just go get coffee with people, network, go out with my buddies, and just shoot the shit about how the day's going. And I was like, this is great. I'm meeting a ton of people. Everybody loves me. I love everybody. We're having a blast. I'm doing my thing, where I'm still getting the bare minimum done with work. I'm like, I could, be here 20 years. I could run a desk. I mean, if this is what the job is like, this is phenomenal. I'm like, hey, I'm having a ball. So get a full-time offer, because really to get an offer, all you have to do is be likable, be somewhat smart, and show interest, especially if you're in sales. So got a full-time offer, went back, started in June. We did 3 months of training, and it was 9 to 5, super simple. When you start on the desk the day after Labor Day, it's drinking from a fire hose, ice bucket goes right on your face. Oh my God, night and day. You're on the desk at 5:45. You're there till probably about 7 p.m. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was. This was not like the internship or training where I was just screwing around all day. So ended up, after about 2 weeks, realizing this was not for me. It's not what I thought I signed up for. I enjoyed more meeting people, going out, building relationships. The actual job, I was on a flow desk, meaning very back and forth, really quick pace. So interest rate sales is all done over Bloomberg chat. And because it's quick pace and it's not like mortgage-backed securities where maybe it's more structured trades that take longer to put together, you're always on chat. You're always on, which I did not like. You had to jog to take a piss and come back. Otherwise, people would be like, what the hell? Where were you? So it was that fast paced. And that's why I ended up not being there as long as I thought. It just wasn't for me.
But for some people, they love that, they enjoy that, or whatever. And then you get into the mortgage industry, right? And I think, I've obviously been in the business for a long time, and not everybody gets the mortgage industry and the kind of what it takes and the mindset. It's crazy 24/7. It can be depending on the situation, but
yep.
How was that transition, and kind of what was that like getting into the mortgage industry full time thereafter?
Yeah, definitely. And to say, I mean, there's guys in the business I used to be in that have been in it for 25, 30 years. They love it. And if you're doing a flow type product, you're selling that versus you're selling a structured product, it's night and day what your day-to-day looks like. So that's got to be said too. I might have just been in the wrong product and business was great. So that might have been part of it. The transition to the mortgage business, I started when in a major refinance boom. I mean, rates were cratering to 3%. And those first 6 months in the business, it was just the way I started is I came in, my dad never really harvested his past client database. So he had a ton of people. If people reach out to him, he's going to get business, but he wasn't proactively reaching out to his database to refinance or help them, with saving money, et cetera. So right away, that was the biggest opportunities. I came in and just went through his database and started calling people and creating mortgage plans, showing them where they were now, what it would look like if they refinanced. And, it was numbers. It made sense for everybody. So the mortgage business is a lot of hustle. If you're willing to put the work in, pick up the phone, dial, you could do very well. And that's what the first 6 to 9 months were, was just calling past database, getting in front of people, and then sharing on social media that I'm in the business, sharing ways that I can help people, whether it was refinancing or buying a home, and just, continuing to build a brand and get your name out there.
Real quick, before you kind of continue to go on this journey with us, for the listeners out there, where can they find you? Speaking of social media, where can they find you online?
Gciams, GCIAMS. Instagram, TikTok.
Do that one more time. GCIAMS.
IAMS.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, it's all my handles.
Cool. So refi boom, things are busy. Talking
Yep.
to clients, showing them the value, the benefits of potentially being able to look at a refinance.
Yep.
Rates are in the threes, and that's 2020, right?
Yeah.
At that point, and then
Yeah.
rates continue to go down. I mean, there were rates in the twos. It's not it's along the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, 2021, it was in the twos. So like 2021 just was what 2020 was for the first 6 months I was in the business. And, first 6 months, I think I did about 9 million. 2021, I did about 35 or 36. And about half of it was 18 pretty much 18 purchase, 18 refi. And it was just, I came in at the right time. I got lucky with timing and was able to do a good job for a lot of clients, and honestly built up a client database at that point of like, that one year, I think I did about 130 loans. That was just, a lot of it was refinances. And which is super important looking back, because you do a good job for a client, you're able to reach back out to them for repeat business. So the lifetime value of a client, goes up tremendously. And then, 2022 was last year, all purchase. I think I did 5% purchase business. If I did 20 million last year, 19 of it was probably like purchase. And the change from refinance business and mortgage business, refinance is pick up the phone and dial. You're calling your past database, you're cold calling people, and you're just explaining the benefit of refinancing. Purchase business is very relationship driven. So you're building relationships in your local community, realtors, financial advisors, CPAs, past clients, to generate business. And that's what drove business last year. And that's what I'm focusing on moving forward.
So in 2022, kind of taking what you're talking about, because, you're in the business, right? You're in the eye of the storm, so to speak.
Yep.
And you're helping other people be able to purchase real estate, which, you and I both know is a tool to be able to build wealth. And I want to dig into kind of the student housing here later on in the journey on this talk. But in 2022, it was really a tale of two halves. 2022 for us, was pretty similar-ish to previous years. Second half of the year, the amount of activity just trailed off. And, rates, we were locking rates in the low threes in December of 21. And then by June, it was in the mid sixes. And so the number of people that could qualify was obviously dramatically lower, but the people that wanted to do anything, it shifted too, because of I think people are just scared, and still are scared of what's to come and the unknown, and no fault to anybody. It's just, there's market conditions have moved so fast that there's a lot of uncertainty. And so with the type of clients that you've been able to kind of build a relationship with and work with, what percentage of that was a first-time home buyer? Just complete guess.
Close to 50%.
Okay.
In 2022, I did 90, like I said, probably 19 million to purchase. And out of that, 50% of those were first-time home buyers.
So I saw a stat come out earlier in the year from NAR, National Association of Realtors, that the average age of a first-time home buyer hit 35 or 36, which a few years previous, it was like 28. And, data is obviously can be misleading depending on the scope and the parameters that are input into the data. But the number of transactions were dramatically lower than in previous years. And obviously prices and rates have gone up considerably. So a lot of the younger crowd is not able to or wants to be able to purchase. So another question for you on that, just pure guess, that of that first-time home buyer crowd, how many of those would you say are under 30 years old in last year's data for you?
If I did, let's say, out of all the first-time home buyers that I worked with, I would say probably less than 30, about 20 to 25%. The majority were 30 plus.
Okay. Okay, cool.
And, as we've seen, you see higher home prices, you see more student debt, and it just becomes less affordable for people getting their start unless they're making, $80,000 a year to go buy their first place.
So I'm in the Midwest. I'm in St. Louis, and this is one of the most affordable places in terms of big cities in the country. You and I were just talking about this. I was in Florida this past week, and that's more of a short-term rental. So prices are higher on the beach there. And there's other pockets where the DC market is considered a high-cost area, LA a high-cost area where the county limits are higher. In your market in Connecticut, kind of where would you gauge the average price point is, just across the board, just average price point in your area?
In my market, it's probably like 600K.
Okay. Cool.
If the town I live in during the summer, it's close to $1 million. Where I live in the rest of the year, it's probably close to like 550.
Okay. So I think median sales data, I think the average price is like in the 450. So
Yep.
a little bit higher than maybe some of the other markets. Obviously, it's the Northeast, so it's gonna be higher than most areas anyway.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was going to say we're a high balance county, the county that I
Is it
originally
high
got some
balance?
loans at. Yeah.
Okay, so the kind of limit 726 or whatever it is. Where are you guys at right now in terms of your limit?
Actually, now that you say that, we're not high balance. Like if you go last year, we were at 695 when the conform was 647.
Yeah.
Westchester, right over the border, was 822. So we're not like super high balance, but we were above conforming.
Okay. So, when we talk about, the requirements to be able to purchase a home, you know, you obviously going to have a down payment and closing costs. And so somebody that's under 30 years old trying to buy a house, I guess what would be a first time home buyer type of price range? Can you get something in the fours or threes, or where are you seeing some of those first time home buyers? Like what price point are they buying in?
They're buying usually between like 350 and like 550
Okay.
for single family homes. I do a ton of 2 to 4 unit FHA loans where a buyer is going to live in one unit and rent the other units out. When you're buying a multifamily 2 to 4 unit, as you know, you can use the rental income from the units you're not going to be living in to help you qualify. So maybe for a single family, you only qualify for 400K, but if you're buying a 3 family, it's now, five and a quarter, 525,000.
Cool.
So
Let's dig in there. Let's dig in. So let's say you buy a single family property for 400,000, right?
yep,
And you're gonna do FHA. Say your credit score is 660, FHA down payment plus closing costs.
yep.
With our calculators and all this in front of us, what would you gauge the out of pocket would be if you just assume full closing cost?
So whenever I talk to a buyer, I usually say, 3.5% is your down payment, closing costs of about 2.5% roughly. You need 6%.
6%.
So of 400, it's like 25,000. It's 24. So call it 25,000.
Okay.
If you're buying a single family.
Cool. And then that person that's going to buy that multifamily, let's say 525
times 6%, you're looking at like 31,500.
Okay.
So it's only a difference of roughly like $7,000.
Okay. But then
now here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
The payment for that single family home might be 2,800. So each month you're going to have a net housing expense of $2,800 out of your pocket. If you go buy at 525, let's say your payment's now 3,800, a full $1,000 more. We'll even call it 4,000 just for round numbers. But if you're buying a 3 family and you're able to collect $1,500 in rent from each unit, and then you live in one of the units, you're taking that $4,000 payment down to $1,000 net out of your pocket. So even if you have to pay, a few extra expenses, you're going from $2,700 to $1,000. So $1,700 a month you're saving, which, what is that? It's like it's like 20 grand pretty much over a year is what now you're going to be able to save and either put towards your next down payment or just help with your lifestyle costs.
In that example was how many units? I'm sorry.
3.
Okay. So 3 units. Okay. So in your area, the amount of multifamilies, because some places don't have multifamilies, but many cities do. Would you say that it's a good amount that's out there in terms of the supply, or is it limited, or what? How would you explain that in your market?
Right now, it's definitely tighter than most. In Connecticut, there's no new builds going on, so there's not as much new construction as a place like where you're from. So it's a little bit tougher for supply. I have this background noise. I don't know. Okay, so, but even if you took a 2 family, for example, and let's say the rents were a little bit higher, let's say it was 1,800 and your payment's still $4,000, you're still going to drop your net payment to 2,200 versus 2,700 on the single family.
So when somebody decides to kind of go down that path, right, there's pros and cons in terms of your living situation, because if you're on a single family house, right, you're all by yourself. Obviously you're doing the maintenance on all by yourself, but you don't have anybody near you or above you or neighbors or whatnot. Versus a multifamily where you have, a neighbor or somebody above you or below you, and you have to deal with, rents and dealing with the tenants and all that stuff. And that's probably for a different conversation. But when you roll the clock forward, can you kind of share a little bit of kind of why is that so important, or why can it be powerful for somebody to be aware of how powerful FHA multifamily can be?
Yeah. So if you're buying with an FHA multifamily loan, year one, like we said, let's just say your payment was $4,000 and we're going to use a duplex and you can rent it for $2,000 for round numbers. because that's probably roughly what my market is. So your net payment's now $2,000 versus if you bought a single family, it's $2,800. Let's say after a year you decide to move out, and now you're, breaking even, or you're collecting $4K in rental income, and your mortgage payment is $3,800. So now you're cash flowing slightly a bit. But what's happening, let's say you're just breaking even after expenses. You're building equity each year. So each year tenants are paying down your rent or paying down your mortgage. You're in a 30-year fixed rate loan. So additionally, each year, if rental income increases, if the gross rent you're able to collect increases, your payment's not going up, your expenses aren't going up. So you're able to actually increase your return each year because your debt's fixed. If the house appreciates in value, great. That's another benefit. But from a standpoint of if you're cash flowing at all when you move out, now you could go buy a single family home and use any of the cash flow you're getting to help offset your new mortgage payment. Anything you could do to lower your housing expense is crucial, because like that first example, I gave you a 3-family and your housing expense went from $2,700 to $1,000 a month. If you only have to cover $1,000 a month, you're going to be in a better position to take risks. And by risks, I mean, you might take a full commission job, or a sales job that has higher upside than an $80,000 salary position. The sales job you might be able to make $250,000. It's going to be tougher to take that if you have to pay $2,700 a month versus if you can do $1,000 a month. You're like, okay, I could probably make it work. And it's small things that compound over time. If you do get a sales job and you make $250,000, you're not going to be there forever. But then you take the extra money you're making there and then you roll it into more real estate, and things just compound over time.
So the average person who's say 25, and how old are you right now?
25. Yeah.
So you're 25. So the average person that's in your age range in their mid 20s, that's not purchasing, right? They're renting or living rent free. What do you think is the biggest thing that's stopping them besides money? Because money is just part of the puzzle. What's the biggest thing that's stopping that person from taking the leap into real estate?
If it's not one, it's education and understanding it's feasible and that they can do it. Well, the first is education. The second is them thinking they can't do it, or there's a reason that they might not be eligible, or something's holding them back, when in reality, it's not true.
So, and those are two really, really important things that kind of cross over and complement each other. But education by itself, what do you think is one thing that somebody needs to hear or understand to really understand the power of real estate that's in that early, mid 20s range?
I think a lot of people get nervous that if they buy a house, the amount of responsibility that comes with it, that they have to, if they get a call from a tenant that the toilet's leaking, they have to go fix it. In reality, you don't have to be the property, you're the property manager, but you don't have to be the contractor that goes out and fixes everything. You could pick up the phone and find somebody to do that. I think people get overwhelmed with all the things that could go wrong with a property, and things do go wrong, but you just have to take it one step at a time. If somebody calls you with a problem, you have to find out who to call. You call them, you set up a time for them to come visit, fix the problem, and you just take things one step at a time. But when you're looking at everything and it looks like such a big picture problem, you can't break it down into small steps and realize that's how you overcome that obstacle.
And then believing they can do that, right? I mean, maybe just trying to simplify things and take it, like you said, one step at a time. Anything else?
Yeah, even if you're looking to qualify for buy a home and get pre-approved and find out how much money you're going to need, the first step is just to call a lender and have a consultation, and then fill out an application and then submit your documentation. And during that consultation, you'll find out, what credit score you roughly need, how much income you're going to need, how much in assets you're going to need. And by just doing one step at a time, you'll be able to start buying real estate, but you have to just, take a little step forward.
So kind of getting back to your student rental stuff. So when you say student rental, what does that actually mean for the listeners out there?
We buy single families, duplexes, mostly residential homes. We're usually doing some kind of renovation work, sometimes cosmetic, all the way down to full gut rehabs. Once we renovate the property, if we can, we're going to pull money out, cash out, refinance our home equity line of credit. We're going to rent these to students, and then we're going to continue to repeat that process.
And the first one you purchased that you turned into a student rental, Can you explain that again? That was your first property you purchased as a multifamily or
Single family home.
a single family? Okay, so you purchased a single family
So
home as a primary initially?
correct. I got my start with a 650 purchase price in Fairfield, Connecticut. I put 10% down. I got a 10% gift from my mom. I had to put 20% down because my debt to income ratio was too high otherwise. So 20% down payment. You have to live in it for a year. And then after a year, you can move out, turn it into a student rental or any kind of rental.
Mhm.
And that's how I got my start.
So
If it was my decision, if I could have qualified, I would have put less money down, but I didn't. My DTI was too high. So I had to put 20% down. I was in a great position where she could give me a gift for that.
So if that wasn't an opportunity, and we're talking about some of the people you mentioned in terms of first-time home buyers, that price range,
Yep.
maybe it's a little bit lower, then would you just gone to a lower price point and figured it out if you didn't have that option?
Yeah, I could have switched to an FHA loan. I could have went to a lower price point. Both of those would have been good.
So at that moment in time, buying as a primary residence, did you know what you were doing in terms of turning it into a rental? Is your future plan?
I had an idea. My mom started buying in that same market about a year and a half ago. I saw the opportunity that was there and was like, this could be a slam dunk. So for me, I originally was actually going under contract, assuming I'd be able to live in it and put less money down. Once I was under contract, I'm still working my W-2 job and I was like doing the actual pre-approval myself. So just like, wasn't even focused on it. Went under contract. And then I was like, I'll figure it out after. And then found out, DTI was too high. So that's what happened. But yeah, I went in knowing I'd buy it as a primary, but with long-term plans to rent it out.
Cool. So then time goes by, you quit the job, quit the W-2 job,
Yep.
and then kind of what was the next step on your path?
Yeah. So that was April of 2020. 3 months go by, I quit my W-2 job. We're going to fast forward all the way. I'm working with my dad 6 months through the end of the year. Now it's 2021. Rolls around to like May. Now I've rented out my house. I have students in there and it's getting ready for the summer for summer tenants. And I want to buy another one. And a house comes on the market, single family. And my house also appreciated in value over that year. During COVID, home prices went up. And I put 20% down at the time. So I pulled out a home equity line of credit and had money that I could invest. And I was making money from the mortgage business because it was, doing so well. So house comes on the market for like 750. My brother wants to buy it and I want to buy it. My younger brother. We both put offers in on it separately and neither of us got it. So we're like, this makes no sense. Like, we're going to start competing against each other. We're like, why don't we just start partnering up and buying together? So my brother-in-law, same thing. He was, want to start investing. So we came together and about a month and a half, early July, a 2-family comes on the market. And that was our next purchase. Came on. We jumped on it quick, knew it was going to be a great deal. It was listed for 650. We ended up buying it at like 710.
And so that was middle of 21?
Yep. July 2021.
Okay. So on that deal, 2-unit, you mentioned your brother and your brother-in-law. So how did you guys, finalize the financing? Who was on it and what type of financing did you do?
Yeah. So for that property, my brother-in-law they just got married. They had one kid and they were renting a place in Fairfield, the same town. He ended up doing 15% down, moved into that property, spent a year living there. And that was a home run because we were able to put less money down because he was going to live in it. So we put 15% down instead of 25, which was huge. We had to put a little bit more down because the appraisal came in low. So
what kind of loan was that?
Conventional 2-family loan with 15% down.
Okay. So the guidelines say 15% down on a conventional?
Correct.
If it's a 2-unit primary. And
Yeah.
why not FHA for him?
At the time, we had enough money for conventional. We didn't know how many we would buy. PMI was going to be so much cheaper that, the loan amount was 588 for FHA. It would have been like 650. So we were just running numbers and like, we would rather at that point pay more for the down payment than get an FHA loan. It was an option. We just decided not to go with it.
Cool. Yeah. Cause I think from just basically guessing, what do you think? 3 times the amount of the monthly PMI?
Oh, no, more than that. I mean, the PMI and you put 15% down, we were paying like $48 a month in PMI on a $600,000 loan at 85. It would have been like $450 a month.
Yeah.
Would have been like 9 times or 10 times.
So he buys that in his own name, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then what happens next?
Every time we buy something in our personal name, we're always going to quick claim it to an LLC as well. I've heard mixed reviews of whether people do it or not, but we always put it into a LLC after we close on it. Okay. After that, so we actually closed on that like middle of June of 21. I was working on a larger deal. It was an 8 unit. It's 5 structures on 1 lot. And that was rented to like market rate tenants. It was right in the same area that we were buying properties. Like it was a slam dunk location. And I pulled a list of owners in the area I wanted to buy. I started cold calling. This guy I started cold calling in January of 21. He was like, didn't want to talk to me. I call him back a month later. Still doesn't want to talk to me. Now it's March. I call him. I'm like, hey, I'm not a broker, because he thought I wanted to list his property. I'm like, I'm interested in buying it. You know, do you have a few minutes to talk? He's like, fine. You know, what do you want to know? We chat. He's like, okay. He gives me all the numbers, NOI, rental income, expenses, what he wants for it. He's like, I'm going to be back from Florida. I'm in Naples right now. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Meet me at the property. I'm like, sure. So I call him up the day he said he was going to come home. We meet at the property, walk around. I'm like, I like it. So I go, you know, what do you think you want for it? He's like, well, you know, I was thinking about 2.1 would be a fair price. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, 2.1. I'm thinking in my head, like, one, it was a slam dunk at 2.1, but I'm like, it's kind of high. I'm like, how about let me think about it. I was thinking more 1.85. He's like, if you're thinking that, like, don't bother coming back to me. So I'm like, Jesus. So I go home, talk with my dad, my mom, my brother-in-law, and my brother, my sister too, of course. Tell him about the deal. And we're running numbers. We know that's gonna be a home run. So we sign the contract at 2.1. We go under contract. I try lining up financing for like the next 2.5 months, and no bank or credit union would lend on it. I can't do the loan as a mortgage company because it's larger than 5 units. So when you get above 4 units, it goes from residential financing to commercial financing. So at that point, you have to go to banks, credit unions, and really like alternative debt funds. And no one wanted to touch it because the debt service was about 150,000, or it was close to 1 times. Because the rents were so far below market, the NOI wasn't even 1.2x. So no bank was going to touch it. So what we ended up doing was getting a hard money loan for 1.7 million, had to put down 400,000. And we got a 12-month loan, interest only, 10% rate. We paid a point up front. We paid a point on the way out. It allowed us to buy the property, make some renovations, get students in there for leasing, raise the net operating rate, raise the rental income, which also raised the net operating income. And then what happened about 8 months after that, like, 7 or 8 months, we took the raised NOI to a credit union, and they ended up allowing us to refinance that hard money loan, that bridge loan, into permanent debt, which I now have a 30-year amortization, 5-year. It's a 10-year balloon with a 5-year fixed rate, resets once after 5 years for another 5 years.
And how much lower was that rate?
So I went from 8.99% on the hard money loan to, I locked that rate in February of 21 February of 22. Right as we talked earlier in this podcast, rates started rising. So I didn't close until June, and it was a nightmare of how long it took, but they held the rate lock. So I had a 4.625 rate on a 30-year AM, which has been a home run. So
awesome.
Yeah, so I was able to squeeze it in then. The 400K we came up with up front was a mix of myself, my brother, and my dad. So my dad was 50% owner in that property and pretty much fronted the money for half of the equity we needed. So that's how we funded that project. We've since, raised rents. We have it leased out for this current year, next year, and the year after. And, I don't know what the game plan is with that. If we're ever going to refinance it before the rate resets, but come the time it's going to reset, we might look at doing a cash out refinance because we raised the NOI so much that there's, the value of the property based on a cap rate has gone up. And now we have a ton of equity we could probably tap into.
I love it. So, when you talk about, this process, getting into real estate, the planning, you mentioned appreciation. I think it's important to talk about this just for a second, because, one of the examples that we talk about a lot on this channel is that, one of the reasons that we try to show how powerful real estate can be is you take $10,000, say you put it in the stock market, and you get a 10% return, which is a great year in the stock market. $10,000 at 10%, that's $1,000. And then as opposed to buying a home, let's just say it's $300,000, take that 10 grand as a down payment. Boom, you have a new house. And if that house appreciates in 1 year at 3%, just a regular average appreciation at 3%, well, which one's going to have a greater return in terms of just dollars? Well, when I ask this question to somebody who's not in numbers like you and I, we get kind of crazy answers. Mm-hmm. But obviously it's $9,000, which 9,000 is a lot bigger than $1,000. And that's just one example, as you mentioned, the other reasons why real estate can be powerful. But 9,000 to 1,000 is a 9 times difference. And then if you multiply that over a number of years and you get more properties along the way, I mean, things get exponential. So that first property that you purchased, you said for $650 single family, I think in 2019, what would you guess that property is valued at today?
It's probably worth, I bought the house across the street like 2 months ago, and it was identical, and I paid almost identical. I paid $977. So it'd probably be worth about $950.
Okay. So that's, roughly 50% increase.
Correct. Yeah.
3 years. So, and that's massive. That's absolutely massive. And you acquired the property. So it went up, what is that? 300,000 plus ish. Again, it's all just on paper at this moment in time, but it went up $300,000 in a couple of years. And how much was your down payment?
130,000.
Okay. So you basically 3 times your money on the appreciation in 3 years.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that in an ETF.
Never. Plus cash flow, which has been phenomenal, and the loan is just going to start paying itself down even quicker, because the first 5 years of a 30-year fixed rate loan is mostly interest. Once you hit that 5-year mark, you start paying a ton of principal down.
So, that's why I love talking about this stuff, especially somebody who is in your age range, where, the average age is a first-time home buyer is in the 35 range, right? That's obviously shifted in the last couple of years. But let's say you're 25 and you're out there listening to this channel and you say, well, I can't buy a house. I don't have the money. I don't have the cash, or whatever reason is. That's obvious, right? There's a million reasons why somebody can't buy a house. But what if somebody figures out a way to be able to get into the game? And, we talk about this on this channel, the stair step method, which is kind of basically what you've done. You buy a property, live in it for a period of time, save up, buy the next one, turn the old one into a rental. If you do that a couple of times over the years, you can build a pretty massive portfolio, putting low dollars of down payment in each time, which the minimum down payment, let's just call it 5%. And so if you buy 4 properties, over that time span, that's a 10-year head start of appreciation and equity pay down before the average person right now may not even be buying their first house, which is just crazy. The amount of the math and the graphs, the difference in terms of net worth stacking up, versus the average person versus the person who gets in the game. And you don't have to get into the game regardless of where you are in your market. It doesn't have to be $1 million property. It can be a 150 or 250 or whatever it is. Getting in the game is important. So, getting into the game by buying that first property, and it sounds like you had a pretty good idea of maybe what you wanted to be able to do along the way in terms of rentals. But, how was your viewpoint on real estate and the possibilities that are out there changed now versus right before you bought that first property?
I love that question. And I'm going to answer something about getting in the game really quick. There's a few ways you could do it. If you don't have income, you could find a co-borrower. If you don't have assets, maybe you have a 401k you could tap into, or you have somebody that could give you a gift. If you don't have credit, you're going to be screwed. You got to find somebody to help you there. But let's say other options. You could do seller financing, where if you found a seller who might be willing to hold a note, you don't need to qualify for a conventional mortgage or an FHA mortgage. It's another great way to get into, buying your first property. There's also, subject to, there's wrap mortgages. Those are definitely more in depth. I don't even have my head wrapped around it to explain it, but 100% great opportunities. You could look them up and, check that out. In regards to where I first thought of real estate's possibilities to today, when I bought my first house, I was just thinking, can I make an extra 30,000 a year? Can I provide some income to help pay for marketing or like, not worry about some of the bills or whatever the case may be. Now it's like, okay, how can we grow the business to one, make it more than my W-2 income and eventually make it the biggest income? I could see myself, not retiring from mortgages at 30, but like seriously having enough money where I could go all in on real estate. And that might be the highest return on investment in the future. I had a friend who's 26 now. He's my age pretty much. He was an engineer making like 120,000 a year. Bought his first property with an FHA loan, 3-family, Middletown, Connecticut. It was probably like maybe Meriden. And it was probably like $260,000 purchase price. He's since built up a portfolio of like 35 units using bank debt, credit unions, couple conventional loans, some seller financing. And he left his engineering job to go full-time in real estate. And he probably makes like, I'm guessing around $200K a year in cash flow to like sustain his lifestyle and grow. So I know that the opportunity is huge. And like for me, it's like, all right, I want to keep buying student rentals in the market I'm in. And then eventually you have enough cash flow coming in. Business I'm in is very cash flow heavy. There's not a much appreciation. There's no liquidity events. I'm not going to be able to, have this huge waterfall of $3 million hit me if I did something on a commercial side. But the cash flow now, is safety. And we can use that cash flow each year to now start go buy, triple net properties, retail strip centers, and take it to go do that in a few years' time.
I love it. I love it. So replacing your W-2 income. I mean, that's bottom line, right? Like not have to rely on your job, a job, right? I mean, is that pretty much sum it up?
100%. That's the goal, is to literally walk away from your W-2 job if you don't want to. It's a little different for me personally right now with the mortgage business. And now, my dad owns it and eventually it'll be mine and my brother's. But like when I first got started, I was like, all right, because I was working that Wall Street job. It happened a lot quicker than I thought. But like, how can I replace my income from a job that I don't like and really get my time back to do what I want, which I'm doing now. I love the mortgage business. It's a blast.
So, in your network, in your friends and family circles, right? I mean, do you have a lot of people talk about that out loud? Hey, my goal someday is not have to rely on my job. Or do you think people think it, don't say it, or think it, but they don't think it's possible? I mean, what do you see around you from that mindset of getting out of your W-2 job?
I do a good job of surrounding myself with people with the same mindset. So a lot of my friends are people that I've done business with that have bought real estate and have the same mindset of continuing to acquire assets and get better each year, whether it's, health, fitness, wealth, whatever it is. So we all talk about how can we continue to buy more assets so that we don't have to rely on an income or a W-2 job. And we like the thrill of finding a deal. We like structuring deals. We like, real estate's all about solving problems for the seller, your tenant, etc. So we're doing we're doing, I had my brother pop in. Geez, killing me. It's all about problem solving. So we're having those conversations all the time. And whether it's like we're bringing people together for dinners, happy hours, etc., that's always, the conversations are always revolving around that. How can you get your time freedom back? How can you build time freedom?
Back? Yeah. So, in our job, right? I mean, we're talking to people every single day, from all kinds of different walks of life, ages, backgrounds, experience. And some people think like that. Some people want to think like that, and some people have no interest in thinking like that. And everyone's probably, on some spectrum of those things. And, I think the purpose of this channel for me is to be able to show, ways that people are getting ahead, ways that people are getting out of the rat race, taking that fear and the struggle and the pain and harnessing it to be able to get to where you want to go and reach your dreams and your goals. But you can't make somebody do something. You can't make somebody want to do something. But at the same time, the more that people like you and I and anybody else that's out there that's talking about this and showing regular people that are doing it, because the subconscious of this country has been shaped over many decades and years to go get a job, get your 401k, retire at 60, whatever, and have your Social Security. And, as I've kind of gone through this platform and had enough episodes, and along the way started like looking at some of the conversations and the storylines, and it's like, holy shit, like all these people that are doing their different things, they've gone through something, struggle, pain, fear, whatever that's pushed them out of their comfort zone to go reach these crazy higher levels. And, those are the things that, I think are important to be aware of, because pain and struggle is not always a bad thing. It actually could be a good thing if you look at it from the right mindset. And so, but that's subconscious. The more that we talk about this, maybe more people hear it, more people think that it's possible, more people go get a side hustle, turn that side hustle into a business that earns 3 times as much income as their shitty W-2 job was making, or whatever, and build more skills, build more experience to be able to get better at your job, So I say that all loud because, you're on Twitter, you're building your following. And when did you start your Twitter account, or start getting active on your Twitter account?
I started posting in November of 2022. So it's like almost 4 full months.
Okay. And I think you're over 1,000 followers at this point, so give or take, which is pretty badass. Short time frame to build up that much. What are your thoughts on that? Why is that important to you to be consistent there?
So I actually use Twitter. I use 2 tools to help me with Twitter. One's a scheduler. So I schedule all my posts in advance. And the second is like an engagement tool. So I'm able to engage with a lot of people at once. So I don't have to have my phone out all day during the day. And I found, and other people say the same thing, that Twitter's audience, or the people on Twitter, seems like they have a higher IQ than other platforms. 100. I mean, like TikTok versus Twitter, there's got to be like 40. The difference is crazy. I found that by posting consistently on Twitter about my story, what I've done with the mortgage business, real estate investing, and educating and helping others, people self-select and want to reach out to you and connect with you. And maybe if you're from a smaller town or area, like where I'm from, there's not a ton of people my age compared to when I was living in Manhattan. So Twitter is like that community where people will reach out to you that are like-minded, and it's a great place to connect. And then from there, you hop on a phone call and you don't know where the conversation is going to go. Like you and me hopped on a call and now we're here. I've talked to other people and we're setting up like, I have one guy who's has a power washing business in Westchester, 30 minutes from me. He might end up doing a few of our houses this summer. And it's like, you want to support other people on the platform. You want to see other people do well. It's a great place to connect. It's been awesome.
I love it. We're running short on time here. We got a few more minutes left. Kind of one important question, kind of going back to the pain and struggle. Patrick Bet-David, life insurance CEO, big following on all the social media. He kind of coined the term paradigm shift. That one moment in life, or that one thing in life that just shapes your life and puts you on a different trajectory. That pushes somebody out of their comfort zone. I mean, is there a moment like that happened to you along your way in your journey to kind of help get you to where you've gotten today?
I would say the biggest thing I had with jumping out of the comfort zone was, it was my sophomore year, and everybody was, after my freshman year, I was kind of done going out to bars, partying. I did that 3-4 nights a week freshman year. I kind of looked around and was like, this isn't what I want. And I want to start doing something different. Like I want to start focusing on my career and like thinking about what I'm going to do after college. For whatever reason, it kind of hit me quick. And everybody that sophomore year was, not a bad thing, but they were still going out, having a great time. And I focused on just meeting people in the business, cold emailing, cold messaging, hopping on calls. I still have a spreadsheet. It probably ended up being like 250 to 300 names of like people that I've spoken with that were in some kind of financial services business. And I probably visited, a dozen to 15 different trading desks. And like that year, I just like kind of turned the knob on what I wanted. And, since then there's been smaller things. And, when my mom bought 2 properties of student rentals, she bought 2 at once to get started in August 2018. I was working at Citigroup as an intern, then came home that Friday when she called me and we looked at them that day. That was another shift of like, when you take a step back and realize there's a guy on Twitter, Real Estate God or Real Estate G6, something like that. If you pull 1 or 2 big levers every year, it'll make a bigger impact than anything else you could do. So like for me, if I could buy 2 really good student rental deals over the next 3 years, every year, I don't care what happens in my mortgage business. It could blow up in flames. Because as long as I pull big levers, like buying those student rentals, that's what's going to drive my net worth forward and get my, ability to control my time back. So those are the 2 biggest things, like my sophomore year, and then seeing the shift of like how real estate can create wealth.
So that sophomore year is just something just kind of randomly click along the way. I mean, anything stand out of maybe you're at a party and seeing people do XYZ, or a conversation with somebody, or see like anything come to mind?
So funny you say that. I had that internship and I worked a few days a week there. I actually don't have anything that clicked besides like I just remember, eventually the scene getting old. It might have been I might have been out at a bar one night and was like, is this all there is to it? And I was like, this can't be it. But that was the year I started taking things definitely more seriously.
Okay. So I have to ask this because, most of the people that I talk to are going to be a little bit older than you, and I'm 39, so I've been married for a long time, so this is not what's on my mind, obviously. But from dating standpoint, where are things from a dating standpoint? You with somebody, not with somebody, looking, not looking, too busy? What's for the listeners out there that may be seeing this guy who's a go getter, making things happening, good person to be able to learn from. Tell us about that.
I've probably been on like 10 dates with 2 different girls in the last 3 years. So I haven't dated much. I would be looking, but I view it as like I'm focusing on work right now. If the right person came along, great. But I was talking to my brother and a buddy last night, and I said, in like 2 years, there's no plan. So I don't know. But I feel like when I start dating, I'm going to date fast. I'm going to try and find somebody that I want to settle down with and like start then. So that's where we're at now. Single now. I am looking, but I'm not actively looking. When I am actively looking, it'll be like a second job.
Fair enough. Kind of on the same light, right? The average age of a first time home buyer is 36, and you've got however many units, 18, 16 units that you've built up with your team over time. So that's definitely not the norm. I kind of use this word term gravity, right? Like when you do things in life and you help other people and you pull people along so that sometimes they not want to be pulled along and show people that things are possible. You kind of building this gravity of showing people that things are possible, that people can get ahead and take that kind of W-2 job and throw it in the trash and not have to rely on it, which can be a freeing thing to not have to know that you don't have to rely on someone else, another job. Have you seen people in your network, friends, family that surprised you? Like, oh shit, I never thought they would get this here, but they've done it. They've followed some of these principles that you've been kind of demonstrating.
100%. I have buddies that like I started talking about real estate with 2.5 years ago, and they've bought 2 or 3 properties. They're on their way to replacing their full-time income. And they just honestly, some of it's been listening to me, but like we just all surrounded ourselves with like the right circle, and they're just doing the same things that everybody in that circle is doing.
I love it.
Regular guys that are just, one step at a time. And it's worked out phenomenal.
So somebody out there that's a budding entrepreneur or an already an entrepreneur, has a business or whatnot, who may not be active on social media or may not be very, I don't want to use the word boastful, but sharing their story, sharing their ideas and sharing their insights. You obviously have chosen to do that. But if you were to give any advice to somebody about that kind of same point, helping show that things are possible in whatever industry that they are in, what advice or tips or ideas would you give to that person who maybe not doing that right now?
The fear of not doing it or what people think, nobody's gonna shame you for it. I personally haven't done enough sharing personal stories as much as sharing business information and like real estate information. So that's something I want to work on. But the earlier you start, the more people you can help, and also the more connections you're going to make in a positive way. So I would just start A to Z, where you came from, where you are now, and where you're going to go, and just break that down and start sharing that.
Cool. Okay. So goals for 2023. By the end of the year, what's one goal that you want to be able to hit?
For my origination business, I want to consistently be doing $6 million a month.
Okay.
In loans.
Okay. I love it. This market, obviously it's crazy. As we were kind of talking about before, the amount of transactions is a lot lower than right now than it was, in years past. So how does somebody take market share? I mean, that's really what's going to have to is taking market share. So, how are you going to do that? How are you doing that?
I think the best way is kind of a couple things. Two things. One, we've talked about, and it's building a brand and helping other people through social media. I think by the end of this year, I'm actually, I have my first person I met from Twitter under contract closing in April. So by the end of this year, I think I'll probably close 6 loans from Twitter. That will continue to compound.
I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're licensed in multiple states too.
Yeah, we're in 10 states. I'm getting licensed in California. I just got licensed in Tennessee. We're getting licensed in California, Texas, Pennsylvania because of Twitter. Because I have so many people reaching out from in those states. But yeah, we're already licensed in the Carolinas, Florida, the Northeast. And so building a brand, talking about what you do is super important. Connecting with people on social media. The second thing is our current referral partners just continuing to provide value. So like in the mortgage business, most of our referrals usually is from real estate agents, right? Or would you say the same?
The majority, yeah.
A large portion. So it's how can I provide value to my agents or the people that I work with that other people aren't doing? So one thing that we do consistently that's been a home run is we'll have a professional videographer come over, set up a studio, shoot content. We provide scripts, we provide audio, lighting, camera, etc. The videographer's there. We have somebody edit the scripts. We have like a done for you service for our agents so that they can build their own brand and share that content. And that's been a home run. We only charge, we're not trying to make any money. We just cover the cost of editing, but helping other people grow their brand or the people that send us business has been super important too. And now we're building relationships and going deeper with others. So it's how can we provide more value to our referral partners? And then, the social media side of it for us is how can I share what I'm doing and try and help others?
So again, if you're a buyer, if you're a real estate investor, if you're an agent, what's the best way to get a hold of you and your team?
Yeah, G Chams on Twitter, GCIAMS.
Cool.
The bread and butter.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we'll have to have you on again next time. Maybe dig into a few more stories, dig into a few other examples, and maybe even talk cost seg down the road, a little cost segregation.
I would love that. That's been a home run for us, for me personally, and then in any real estate pros.
Yeah, like I know we got to jump off here, but like I did that for the first time in 2021, and like my whole world just like shifted. Just the lights went on. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know about this.
Are you going to buy any more short-term rentals this year?
I don't know. It depends because right now we've got a big land development that we're doing in Florida, like Destin, Santa Rosa Beach right now. So we're trying to preserve capital for the time being for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if a few other things kind of fall into place, the goal would be, yeah. The goal would be, yeah. Why do you ask?
Well, cost seg, you could, bonus appreciate a full short-term rental property in year one.
Yep. Yeah. And if you do that every single year, like just keep it going. But I guess I think it's going. Oh, they're phasing it out over a period of time. I forget the exact time frame.
I think the next four years, 80%, 60, 40, 20.
Yeah. So the time is ticking to go make it happen. But,
yep.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to catching back up and seeing more of your journey and looking, happy for you and excited to catch up with you. But thanks again for making time out of your busy day.
100%. Thanks, Joel.
All right, Gaetano. Take care.